everybody? Jeff Katz back with you. Hope you're all doing well as we jump now into week 5 of the Underground. We're going to, of course, take a quick previously on look at. I've run out of shows to name. Insert your favorite previously on Twin Peaks. I don't remember. I love Twin Peaks. I don't remember them ever doing that. Last time on Cheers. It's been interesting. You know, I follow most of my news. I look at Meltzer's website and I look at the Squared Circle Reddit. And so I saw, you know, they've had a bunch of like big releases and such from WWE, and a lot of fans speculating where they're going to go, etc. I think it's going to be an interesting thing to watch. And the one caution that I would say is if you're a fan of AEW, and this is frankly the advice I gave them when the production side called me and asked me to sit down, a year, not even 8 months or whatever, maybe before they launched. I talked about this on one of the WRP audio commentaries. I got a call from my agent asking me to go sit down with a company. I wasn't familiar with them, but it was being run by a guy named Bernie Cahill, who I knew through the business. And it ends up that they were owned by the Khan family, and that Tony Khan, it was in his umbrella of stuff. And so I understood then from there what it was. And the one piece of advice that I really tried to hit with them, and I said this to Dixie Carter back in the day when I was doing some consulting for TNA, is you have to build your own names and build your own stars. And so I think that, you know, if you don't own the IP, if you don't create IP that you control in the way that Vince was able to control, let's use The Undertaker as an example, and monetize that and exploit it in a good way over 25 years, that's the business beyond the library to me, as we see Ryan Kidd as 1600 making his way out. And I think that ultimately you got to be very careful because, you're going to get flooded with talent opportunities. And at a point, you got to take a percentage of them and at least start creating guys that you own. And at least from what I can tell, looking online, it seems like guys are coming in using their gimmicks, generally speaking, from before, unless it's a WWE-owned thing. And personally speaking, I think you got to be a little careful there. And I frankly think it wouldn't stun me if Vince, at some level, who's no dummy, nor is Nick Khan, who I know well, that at some level, by flooding the market with extra talent, in some ways you're actually trying to almost handcuff your opponent by giving them too many options. It almost becomes what they call paralysis by analysis. And I think it's something to be careful on. At the same time, if I were Impact or Ring of Honor or MLW, because there's almost too much wrestling content for too few viewers at this point, I'd go after some of these guys obviously a little bit harder. But if I were AEW, and if you're an AEW fan, I'd be looking at that with a little wariness, because I think you got to focus on building your own guys, particularly some IP that you own specifically. So, guys can't just leave and take the IP that you've built and gone elsewhere and run right into that same character. So, speaking of AEW, we look at, I believe, they are executives owners or whatnot. I don't know if they have a piece or what, but obviously the Young Bucks. Essential to this, this is, of course, Matt Jackson as PW3 working in the full warm-up gear. That's that. You can't be a babyface and work in the full sort of douchey warm-up gear. So obviously, in this case, Matt playing the more heelish of the brother characters here. Obviously, that will eventually all come together. Nice head scissor there by Ryan Kidd at 1600. I will not complain about the SAT people again. I'll complain about the ACT people. Actually, I don't even know what is the ACT score. I think ACT was like 30 or something, 30, 36, something like that. And again, now this is one of those advantages. That's a spot that Matt, is not going to do with a ton of guys. But because of the concept here, because of Ryan's character, his physical sort of size, which is built specifically, or I should say, feeds right into the character as scripted, Matt can go and do that, and it's a great sort of heelish counter, sort of Randy Orton-esque at a certain level. And it lets him show a little different flavor of what he can do. I don't know that Nick and Matt felt this, but I think in some ways, as artists, because I do know their mentality, they do look at this, I think, as I mentioned earlier, with almost a bit of an actor's mentality. Well, that's not sporting. Oh, well, there you go. How about that? It's kind of scary when my comment matches up with my play-by-play from 10 years earlier. I might want to consider some original phrasing in that case. But I do think these guys, they enjoy getting to show different elements of what they can do.
Unbelievable.
We got a 1, 2, 3. No. We do not have a Sean Waltman situation. A little tease of it. We teased the Razor Ramon pickle, but we did not bring it to completion, to give you a very warped analogy that will give many of you nightmares tonight.
For a reprise.
And I do, looking back at this, because as I've talked about, I have not really looked at that. I have flat out have not looked at it since I locked it originally. I remain very proud of the fact that, like, you can say what you want about me in terms of how I executed stuff, or particularly with WRP. Obviously, I let people down in a lot of ways. But even if you're not a fan of ultimately what I did now that you've had a chance to see stuff, I do look back at I don't think you can say that I don't have an eye for talent at the very minimum. Because when you look at the guys who I helped, or who I pushed, or who I sort of saw on the come, for the most part, a lot of these guys have gone on to have big careers. And I think in the case of a lot of the underground kids, what you're seeing is obviously the stuff as we talked about, the physical limitations in terms of you look younger, your size is not Vince McMahon airport head turning size. You don't look like Brian Cage, who I've seen a couple times. I follow Brian still on Instagram. He's just gotten insanely jacked. And those are the classic sort of Vince McMahon kind of guys. So talent that doesn't fit that mold is always going to have limitations. It's better than ever, it seems, for talent that doesn't fit the mold to have a way to find those opportunities. But I am proud of the fact, back then this was a bit rarer to give those guys those kind of shots. And it's something that I'm happy to do, because I do think it gives you a little bit of extra shading. I hear Jim Cornette complains about, what's the guy's name? Marco Stunt, who's with Luke Perry's kid. And I saw Marco Stunt work like when he was in like NWA Hollywood and stuff. And so I haven't seen him now. I can't speak to the Cornette issue. And I obviously take what Cornette says about AEW with a grain of salt, as much as I find him entertaining. But one or two of those guys in a big setting, as we've seen, like Spike Dudley, Rey Mysterio's in his own, obviously, class, because he's a once-in-a-lifetime talent. But, there's a really good one or two of those kind of underdog figures, protected, utilized correctly. They can be really valuable pieces of a roster in this case. And so I do think, as we see, we're going to see that running buckle bomb again. No! Countered! Almost puts him into a 619 situation. And again, this is kind of classic wrestling booking. Not reinventing the wheel. Any of you that have heard my audio commentaries know I believe in sort of keep it simple, stupid. Have depth. Try to, appeal to adults, ideally, while still having kids be able to understand it. Kind of like the best of animation. But ultimately, this is about, here's a heelish action. Here's the underdog who's going to take the more dominant heel to the limit. Spoiler, going to lose in the end. You've seen this before if you've watched wrestling, but these archetypes, these sort of basics, they become archetypes for a reason. And so while you can flip them and subvert expectations, etc., there's no need to Last Jedi everything, which I'm not a fan of that film. Like, sometimes people just want Star Wars, and they want Star Wars well told. And I think that should be the objective. And a little disappointment there from Liz. Does not appreciate being a human shield. I've yet to meet a woman that appreciates being a human shield. I'm sure there's a submissive masochist out there somewhere, hanging on different social circles than I.
No sign of him here today.
And again, Matt is a very natural heel. Of all the AEW stuff I'm most curious to see, watching the Bucks working as heels is high on my list, just because I want to see Nick, particularly, who I view as a more natural babyface. But Matt can do that in his sleep. I'm sure he's excellent at it. If I'm not mistaken, I think even Cornette has put over him as a heel. I may be wrong on that. But I really do. It's fun looking at these guys this far back and just seeing the germs and the pieces of their development and knowing how far along they come as we now follow up here in the feed on the Luther and Shayna situation. Luther, famous B, who if I'm not, I do need to confirm this, I believe worked for like Lucha Underground at some point. I will confirm that, but I think he worked a bit after this. And really great guy. All these guys, really, really great attitudes, awesome to work with. And now you're just seeing Hayashi, again, in a lot of ways, old school wrestling, almost like the WWE event centers or WWF event centers with Sean Mooney from when I was a kid, where you would have these quick hit interviews. Sometimes they would pop up in the match when the guy or his opponent he was going to be feuding with would, the Mountie would pop up in the corner himself. I think that's something that's missed. This has a slight, this might be where you would meet the sadomasochistic woman who wants to be a human shield, wherever Stone is hanging out here. This entire warehouse does have I don't want to know what they're using the warehouse for on the weekends, frankly. Thankfully, we shot during the week and wrapped it up from there.